The May 14th, 2026 meeting of the Mountain View Wisman Board of Trustees will please come to order. It is 6 p.m. We're meeting tonight in the boardroom at 1400 Montecito Avenue, Mountain View, California. This meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, Zoom, and on MVWSD.org and is being recorded. I will now perform the roll call of the board.
Bill Lambert.
Devin Conley.
Anna Reed.
And Lisa Henry. President DeFazio is absent at the moment and is expected later. And a quorum is established. All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led tonight by Amy M.I. Elementary.
Good evening. My name is Sophia, and I'm a student at Amy M.I. Elementary in 5th grade. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated.
Thank you. So before we proceed with the agenda, I wish to remind all attendees that the board welcomes and encourages public participation. We ask that all speakers adhere to the decorum and time limits established by Board Bylaw 9323. I will allot time during each item for public comments as we see how many speakers we have. The next item of business is the approval of the meeting agenda. Are there any requests from the superintendent or board members to pull items, reorder items, move anything from discussion and action to consent?
Dr. Westover has one.
Staff would like to pull the Diablo contract for roofing.
And that is within, we have an item number, Rebecca?
Yes. It's E on the consent agenda.
Yep, there it is. Thank you.
E.
Thank you. 6E.
So six.
Okay. So item 6E will be removed from the consent agenda for tonight. Anything else? All right. Any objection to reordering or taking that off? Okay. I will now open public comment on item 1C. If any members of the public in person wish to address the board regarding this item, please turn in a speaker card. If you're online, please use the raise hand function. Wait to see how many speakers we have. Okay. Looks like we don't have any speakers on this item.
I move that the board approve the agenda as presented with item 6E as in Edward removed.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. So we'll now move to item 2 on our agenda, which is our school showcase from Amy M.I. Elementary. Sorry. I have high expectations. So Superintendent Baird, do you want to introduce?
Yes, I will. I was going to introduce Principal Arlene Siam, but she has decided to hand it right off to her students.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Bayer. My name is Ophelia. And my name is Lauren. We are students in 4th grade at EMI. Tonight, Mrs. Siam is going to highlight some of the amazing things that we have done at EMI this year.
Good evening. Today we have a packed room with all my parents and some of our staff members, and we want to highlight a couple of the things we've done this year, but the focus of the meeting today was going to be on the Children's Business Fair. We want to talk to you about an event that we just had, and we want the students to share what they did. But I'm going to start with some highlights, and I'm going to have Jose, who's our SCEF, come talk to us about some of the things we did this year.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Bayer. Very happy to be here representing Amy Imai. This year, we've had so many highlights, so many great activities that we've been able to do at our school, and I'm only going to focus on a few. One of the things we've done to encourage diversity is our multicultural potluck night. And so what we try to do is we invite all parents, it's an open invitation. We invite parents to either share a dish that best represents their country, or they can either perform, sing a song, play an instrument, something that represents their country. And I'm happy to say that this year we had an amazing turnout during our events. So many countries were represented, so much delicious food. So that was a very, very nice highlight. We also have our dinner at Sahara Village. Sahara Village is a mobile home uh, property where we have many of our families that attend Amy Himai. Now, we know that some of these families have a hard time engaging with our school. So Principal Siam and I, we kind of brainstormed and we thought, hey, why not take Amy Imai to them? So we talked to the property manager who happens to be a parent at our school, and we were able to use their clubhouse to have a small event there where we had bingo night, we had games, we had food, and we also had some updates from Principal Siam. And we are happy to report that that was also an amazing turnout. And of course, we also have our gift cards. We've been able to collect and hand out over 50 gift cards for families in need. And we try to focus on those families who may not have certain resources. So we try to give these cards during winter break, February break, and we're also thinking of doing the same for the summer. So those are some of the highlights that we've done this year at Amy Mai. There's so much more we could talk about. But as was mentioned, our biggest highlight, one that we are especially fond of, is the Children's Business Fair. So for that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Zoe Sharp.
Hello, good evening. I'm Zoe Sharp, the instructional coach at Amy MI. I have the privilege to talk about the Children's Business Fair. This has become an annual tradition at MI, and it happens in the spring. We have students who come with their business investors, aka their parents, and they come up with goods and products and services that they sell to the community. Every year over the past several years, it's been growing. So we're really fortunate to have so many people involved helping. Tonight, we have some high schoolers who helped from their club who are going to come talk to you about what they've done. And then we have a whole slew of business owners who are going to talk to you about what they sold and what they learned. So I'm going to ask my high schoolers to come up. Some of them were Amy and my alumni. If you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Oh, one more.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karina, and these are two of my board members. We are part of Mountain View High School's FPLA, and every year we've been able to participate in the business fair. It's something that we enjoy doing every single year. If you could go to the next slide, please. So actually, the business fair has been going for many years. It actually started when I was in 5th grade at Amy Mai. You can see on the slides, we have me on the left. We sold t-shirts, and on the right, we have some pop-up cards. And this was actually something that really started my business journey and actually inspired me to pursue business in college, actually. So this is a big event that really inspires me and something that I really care for. Next slide, please. So throughout the business fair, we've had the privilege to do a lot of different activities. We actually started with the kickoff that was early on in March. And then we also had some workshops that we taught customer service, finance, marketing, and improving prototypes. We've also been able to provide office hours. So if kids have questions, they can reach out to us online. And then finally, we've been able to collect logistics for the fair, and we'll cover that in the following slides. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so now that you guys know a little bit more about how the business fair actually operates, we want to tell you more about some statistics that you're free to check out, as well as how the high schoolers are actually involved. So for the past 2 years, Mountain View FBLA, or Future Business Leaders of America, we were formerly Entrepreneurship Club, but we've been helping out with almost every step of the business fair with AMI. So high schoolers are involved in helping out with the workshops, planning the actual fair itself with some of the back end logistics, and then also volunteering at the actual fair, which is where we get the most amount of volunteers. So this year we were able to help out, just through tracking the number of parents that came in, tracking the numbers in terms of the kids' businesses, as well as just like setting up a boba stand or like snack shops. So we've been able to help out with sort of every step, and we had really impressive numbers this year. We think a lot of people were able to help out, and we were able to reach quite a lot of students. And in terms of why we think starting to build these entrepreneurship skills are so important to the kids early on, is that not only are they able to grow in terms of their passion for what they're making, but they're also able to learn creativity and how to stay organized at a young age, which we think is important in terms of carrying on to high school, as well as like beyond that, just in their lives. And we also think it helps them build a lot of confidence from a young age. You'll see some really wonderful ideas. And just walking around the fair, you really got a sense of how much they've grown and what they've learned from being able to participate in the business fair.
So as Karina has already mentioned, us as high schoolers, we have participated a lot in like a few ways that we participated, as like was mentioned, the workshops and the office hours. So the workshops, we do the finance, we teach the students how to do financing, prototyping, marketing, and customer service. And it's just like to explain to the students how to run their business. And we also do throughout the time of our workshops in the business fair, we give office hours for the students to join a Zoom meeting to ask us any questions that they have that we maybe did not answer during the workshops. And then I feel as well as helping the kids boost their confidence and everything, it also allows the high schoolers to give back to the community. So it really like allows the high schoolers to participate in our community, and honestly, like a lot of this, like that has done it has really enjoyed it.
So obviously it goes without saying, we're so thankful for our high school volunteers. It started as a small teacher committee with only maybe 3 or 4 teachers, and now it's grown to a whole community event with high schoolers running the entire workshop. They actually do a 90-minute workshop, and they have high schoolers who teach the entire thing. They do different classroom management techniques. They pace themselves. It's incredible. They're like little mini teachers. So we're really proud to have high school. Another part of the business fair is we actually ask students to have a 10% donation fee. That is a part of participating. So this year we raised over $800 for various donations, and we already gave them off to those different companies. So we're thankful because we're teaching them about taxes, but we're also teaching them how we donate those taxes. We now have some students who are going to come up. They'll share their business name and some information that they learned about the business fair. Is it tall? Yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is Harper and I'm in grade 5. My business name is Nature Wonders by So Many Nature Environments in a Jar. And this was a great experience for me because you got to learn how to actually run a business, which is not very easy. And I also got to experience with like different speeches, what to say, how the marketing works. And it's a really amazing experience. And everyone, if you feel like everyone wants to come to your shop, I made a total of $230. And I was really surprised since it was my first year. Thank you for listening to me. Hi, I'm Sophia,
and I'm in the 5th grade. My business name is called Yours Truly Soaps, or I Sold Soaps. I had a wonderful experience as well because I sold out with 30 minutes left and I made $149, which me and my group of 3 split between, and I got $40. It was an amazing experience because all of the teachers like Miss Siam and Miss Sharp did a wonderful job, and the high school volunteers too. Thanks.
My name is Damian Berto, and I am in 2nd grade. My business name was DRPA Beach Creations, and I sold bracelets and necklaces. My experience as a business owner was great. We got $8 each as the revenue. I'm gonna do it next year. I highly recommend the children's business fair to buy and even be someone who sells. Thank you for listening to me.
My name is Ophelia. My name is Lauren. We are in 4th grade. Our business name was Cute Comics, and we sold comics and stories. My experience as a business owner was amazing. We made like many products and we sold well. We made $385, and in total over 2 years, around 600. Thank you for listening. Hi, my name is Jan Castro, and for the business fair, my company was Gemshot. Gemshot is a fun basketball carnival game where you can play to win cool prizes like this. And a really cool fact about these is their 3D printers. And one of my favorite experiences was making a cool business with my friends and solving problems. And yeah. Hi, my name is Tara, and my business is named Squish Situation, and we made the cat squishies. So, my favorite part of the business was collaborating with my friends to create something that we all loved. To enhance the product, my friend Anna's not here, so she had the keychain business. So, like, if you like the squishies very much, you can make it a keychain, which is really cool. I feel like. We only made $225, and we also paid $223 back, but that's okay. We each made like $11, so that's good. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. My name is Ria, and my name is Nithya. Our business name is R&N Mysteries. We sold mystery games. We made $78, and after we paid back expenses to our parents and donated 10%, we had 42 left. We split the money with each other, and we each got $21. This is one of our mysteries, and we named it Who Stole Santa's Sack. Thank you for listening. My name is Ruth, and my name is Neil. And we are in 4th grade. Our business name was Arcadia, and we made games. We made games like that one over there, and a mini soccer game, and you can earn cool prizes like 3D printed dragons, and some slime, bookmarks, and some stretchy toys. Our experience as a business owner was amazing. We made $79, and after giving money to our parents and donating 10%, we had $44 left. So we each got $22. Thank you for listening. Hello, my name is Ava, and I am in 2nd grade. My business name was Bright Light Candles, and I sold candles. My experience as a business owner was really good. And
In total, I made $221 and I gave for donation around $30. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for listening to us. We are looking forward to having you at our school tomorrow. Tomorrow's our visit. Thank you, students and families, for coming. If you have any questions, we are here. The kids brought their games so you can see them. And we also have something from Imai to remind us.
Thank you so much to the staff and students from AMI Elementary, and to the students from Mountain View High School who joined them. Really appreciate you coming tonight. Anybody from the board have any comments? Thank you for our gift. Yep. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll take a short 5-minute recess to give the opportunity for pictures. And then we will not be offended if you decide you want to leave after that. But you are welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting.
Connie, you can go, you're a student here. Picture, you can go.
right, welcome back to the Mountain View Wisconsin Board of Trustees meeting. Our next item is item 3, the opportunity for members of the public to address the board concerning items on the closed session agenda. So I will now open public comment for items on the closed session agenda. If any members of the public in person wish to address the board regarding this item, please turn in a speaker card. If you're online, please use the raise hand function. I will wait to see how many speakers we have and allocate time accordingly. All right, it appears that we have no speakers for this item. The floor is now closed to public comment on the closed session agenda. And the board will now recess to closed session at 6:28 PM.
The board has reconvened in open session at 7:09 PM. No reportable action was taken. We now move to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine and will be acted upon in one motion. I'm aware that we removed item, approving the agenda, we removed the existing 6E. So do I have, are there any other removing items or further separate discussion?
I don't necessarily want to pull the items, but I'd like to ask a question about item D and a question about item F.
Yeah, I think we can discuss the consent agenda if you want. Items D and F, clarifying questions.
Would you like me to ask?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, item D has to do with the Crittenden Middlefield turf replacement. There was some discussion last meeting about having a turf field replacement. And I actually attended the Park and Rec Committee meeting last night, and the issue of replacing the field came up again. What was the decision there about turf versus the synthetic, natural grass versus synthetic turf?
Right now, the city is still hoping to move forward with a synthetic field.
That's been decided, and
I think we reached out to the city and asked if they had any interest in changing over to natural grass. And it's quite a large process to do so. It's more than just pulling back the astroturf and putting down grass. You actually have to excavate and remove the base layer. So at this time, the city is not interested in switching over to natural grass.
There was just some discussion last night at the PRC about not using plastic synthetic turf, but using a corn-based material, so, and recyclable and.
Yes. So right now, that's what we'll move forward with is the corn infill instead of what we have currently.
Right, it's not the turf itself, it's when it kicks up,
Yep.
it's either rubber or now they're moving to a more organic material for that.
Yeah, the other question I had is about item F, and the question is the bid came in a lot lower than the projected budget. Could you explain that? I mean, quite a bit, like 40% lower.
Great news is we have Jason K from Greystone here. Right here.
Good evening. So yeah, the original budget included trenching to connect the Network Operations Center at Stevenson to the MDF room at Therakoff, which was a large amount of trenching and backfill. We were able to find a underground conduit existing that could be used as a pathway to get there. So that explains a lot of the difference. There were some other smaller areas where we had similar issues at Graham, for example. There was some new trenching figured in the original budget that didn't end up being necessary.
Yeah, it's nice to hear. It usually goes the other way, right? When you start looking at a construction project, you find a lot more expenses. I know that very well at the moment. Okay, thank you.
All right, if no more questions, then I will turn to public comment on the consent agenda. Any member of the public in person wishing to speak, please turn in the speaker card. And if you're online, use the raise hand function. And I'll see how many speakers we have. No one in person and no one online. I will now do a motion to approve the consent agenda without item E.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item E.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we will move on to section 7, communications. We have any district committees? I don't see employee organizations. Vice President Henry.
I just want to report that the Board Policy Committee met yesterday, the 13th, and reviewed some policies for potential updates. None of them were ready for this meeting, obviously. And our next packet from CSBA is expected to come out soon.
Any other committees? All right, now the superintendent's report.
Yes, a few items tonight. We'll start with just a thank you to Mr. Lambert for calling out a conversation of an under budget item We appreciate the highlighting of that. Within the consent agenda item tonight, you approved the personnel action, and we do have an updated one that was approved. And in that was included welcoming 3 new administrators for the 26-27 school year. And just wanted to acknowledge that they're all here. We'll start with Van Wen, who's going to be our Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation, coming from Milpitas. So welcome. Happy to have you. Margaret Poor is going to be the principal at Bubb Elementary next year. Currently, she works as a coordinator in our district office. So congratulations to Margaret. And also to Gustavo Estrada and his crew. Gustavo is going to be the principal at Gabriela Mistral next year. Very excited to have him on board. He's currently a teacher on special assignment in Santa Clara Unified with a great deal of background in dual immersion programming. So we're very excited to have him on board as well. So welcome to all of you. All right, just a couple of items additionally. Last night, many of you were there. We were honored to attend Santa Clara County School Boards Association annual event last night that recognized the early literacy program at Castro as a Hoffman Award recipient. The award recognizes programs that make a significant impact on student success. And it's really a strong affirmation of our district's focus on ensuring all students are reading by third grade. We're really proud of our team over there at Castro and the work they're doing and making a meaningful difference for our kids. Some kudos out there at the middle school level. Congrats to the talented and hardworking students in Graham's Performing Arts Department. Proud to share that the outstanding results from the recent CMEA festivals, 2 of which were hosted at Graham Middle School, which all by itself is a big undertaking to host that. So thanks to the staff and volunteers who helped. The Graham Jazz Band received unanimous superior ratings. The Advanced Band received overall excellent rating, including a superior rating for sight reading. The Advanced Orchestra received unanimous superior ratings, and the Intermediate Orchestra received excellent and superior ratings and a superior rating for sight reading also. So big thanks to our music directors for their hard work and commitment to excellence. Graham also hosted the Valley League Track and Field Finals this week. Again, a huge undertaking to host. So big thanks to our staff members, coaches, and volunteers. Happy to report that many of our Graham and Crittenden students qualified as individuals and as teams for county finals. And 6 students broke records. So to our track stars, congratulations on a great season and best of luck at counties. And we'll hopefully be reporting some good news about that. I'd like to report that MVWSD recently locked in the savings of over $3 million for local taxpayers by refinancing the bonds originally approved by voters in 2012 through Measure G. The district replaced prior bonds with an average interest rate of 3.38% with new bonds at an all-inclusive interest rate of 2.82%. The savings from the refinancing result in lower property taxes. And when we became aware of refinancing opportunity, which would help our community, we did not hesitate. Our district has received the highest AAA rating from Moody's as a part of that refinancing process. So it's great to have affirmation again that our finances are seen as strong. And then finally, as we continue planning for the future of teaching and learning in our schools, we are taking a thoughtful look at our educational technology and how it can best support student learning and achievement. On Monday, we'll be asking parents and staff and students in grades 4 to 8 to participate in. We'll be asking parents, staff, and students in grades 4 through 8 to participate in a short survey. Our goal is to better understand how technology is being used, where it adds value to learning, and how we can be more intentional and balanced in its use to support students and their learning. This feedback will be an important part of the process and will help guide our future planning. And we'll include this data as part of our strategic planning as we move forward with that. And that's all tonight.
Thank you. I'll now open public comment on the superintendent's report and the district committee report. Any member of the public in person wishing to speak, turn in a speaker card, and online use the raise hand function. See how many speakers we have. Seeing none, now move on to. Oh, yes. Congratulations and welcome. You can hang around if you'd like, but also if you want to move on, you can. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All right. At this time, we open the floor to community comments on items not appearing on tonight's agenda. Please remember that the Brown Act prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the posted agenda. Trustees or staff may briefly respond to clarify facts, or we may direct the superintendent to agendize the matter for a future meeting. I'll allocate time after seeing how many speakers we have. Seeing no one in person and no one online, we'll close community comment section. Now we move on to discussion and action. Our first item 9A, first annual presentation of the operating budget to the MVWSD Board of Trustees by the MVW Residences Corporation.
So we will hand it over to Dr. Westerberg. Maybe you can introduce, but this is an exciting day. When I think back to a year ago at this time, and we were still working through the MVW residences and getting it to the place it is today. It's great to have a report from the executive director of the board of that residences. So, Rebecca.
Yeah, maybe just to second the excitement, because we were in a very different place a year ago. So wanted to turn it over to Peter Ingram, who will give an update. Charles DeFazio is also on the board.
Do you want to say anything? And maybe recognition here, what Peter worked with us. I know you know that during the process of kind of writing that project, and he has been engaged by the Mountain View Residences Board as their executive director right now, right? So we'd love to see him. That's why he's still around.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here. Hello to all of you. Yeah, it is an important milestone that we're going to talk about for a few minutes tonight. The context of this, and just let me say, we're here for two purposes. One, to share the report, hear any questions, and update you on anything of interest, and to also ask for to secure your approval of the first fiscal year budget that the board of directors of the corporation has already passed. And it's subject to both your and Foothill De Anza Community College District's trustees sign off essentially. So that's why we're here tonight. Next slide. So a little bit of background, and it's, as the superintendent pointed out, quite recent background. In October of last year, you formed the 501c3 corporation. In November, you approved the maintenance and operation agreement with Foothill De Anza Community College District as part of your negotiations to sell them units and for them to become an equity partner. And then in December, the Board of Trustees amended the bylaws of the corporation to reflect Foothill De Anza's presence as a party to that as well. I might point out that since October, your Housing Corporation Board of Directors has met 9 times. They've done some seriously heavy lifting because there still is a lot of first-time things we have to accomplish. But we're seeing a little light at the end of the tunnel. We're actually talking about going to quarterly meetings instead of monthly. So I think that's important just to set a pace and sort of a rhythm to the oversight of the property. So currently, this budget that's in front of you tonight for next year is the first full fiscal year budget. We are operating under an interim 7-month budget right now. And as I mentioned, the bylaws and the M&O agreement require that we stop here and at Foothill De Anza for final approvals. Next slide. So just citing the relevant documents and agreements that cause us to be here tonight. The board at the Residents Corporation approved this budget on May 4th. So that was their recent action. Next slide. So I've tried to keep this at a high level, but I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees may have. So I'll just hit on sort of the high level points about the budget. It is a budget to operate and maintain 144 living units for educators from your district and from Foothill De Anza Community College, and 20 units are reserved for city use, for city employees. Our occupancy of the building is going slower than we all hoped, but I think it's obvious that the circumstances of our economy and all the uncertainties and budget challenges are causing it to, people are a little cautious. So while we're seeing a lot of activity, and we are going to increase hopefully from 64 to 87% occupancy, it's certainly, not 100% yet. We have included the first anticipated rent increase in the budget, which would take effect on January 1st. And that's a result of some very thoughtful discussions with the corporation board about being sensitive to the things that are out of their control, like utility costs and other services that are provided to the property that are not inexpensive, and that with a 5% increase can really cause a jump in costs. So their decision is that each year there will be some small increase, as little as 2% and as much as 5%, and they'll tie that partially to CPI and other factors that are relevant at the time. So that means that if we get all those things in place, we have a total income of almost $2.8 million for the fiscal year. The operating expenses total 1.4 million as of now. We've got a small capital expense budget to correct some design problems that we're learning about as it's occupied. And we've got transfers to reserve funds scheduled as part of the budget as well. There is a separate section of the operating budget at the bottom that we're calling the Asset Administrator Governance Expenses section. That's the board's budget for support services for them. So it's legal counsel, auditing service, 990 tax service when we get to that juncture, and executive director services that are provided by contract. So those serve directly to the board, not just your consultants, legal staff, or legal counsel and staff serve you. So the net cash flow would be about $950,000, which is almost exactly where we projected when we were in discussions early about lowering the rents, which happened at the very beginning of the year. So we're real close to where we thought we would be, assuming this budget plays out as it's anticipated. We anticipate that some or all of those revenues that are not needed for the purpose of running the property could be distributed to the ownership agencies. You and Foothill will need to have an audited financial report and some decisions from the Residents Corporation Board, but that is out there. And again, that was anticipated as part of the financial structure of the property. However, this probably wouldn't happen until next fiscal year, fiscal year 27-28. So 1 year out. So we're being very conservative about how much time it would take for that to go through the process. Next slide. So a couple of things about reserves. When I got a call from your now superintendent, Mr. Bear, one of the things we talked about in terms of aspirations for this project was, let's make sure we open the doors or very quickly thereafter have a substantial reserve in place for the property. This is a property that's worth over $100 million. So there's a lot of things about that that require prudence and having reserves on hand. So much to your credit, when you negotiated the package with Foothill De Anza Community College, you made sure there was an increment of money in there in that transaction that could be transferred, which that was transferred. So 2.5 million established the big fund. And then there's a second fund that's anticipated in the maintenance and operation agreement for minor repairs, minor cash flow problems. If we have a month where for some reason there's a cash flow issue, the board can dip into that small reserve to correct problems. So each of the reserves require us to state what we intend to have as a balance at the end of our fiscal year. And so we're saying that the large fund would have about 2.2 million in it at the end of the year. And on the next slide, we show that our first full year with the small reserve fund would be at $72,000. Okay, and just a piece of oversight. So as you will probably recall, the Residence Corporation was set up and is officially your asset administrator for the property on your and Foothill's behalf. As such, the nonprofit corporation it has its own set of bylaws and of course a board of directors. So the oversight and monitoring is really the primary role of the board and its executive director. You will recall we have a contract property manager, a firm that runs the property and takes care of all that. But it's really our job to oversee everything that they do and to make sure we're on the financial reports and the budget so that everything stays in line. So we have a process we're setting up as we speak with the board and the board secretary, the board treasurer and secretary to make sure that we have a regular rhythm of reports come in, they get reviewed by the executive director, back and forth with the property manager, then they go to the board as information, and any questions or concerns are flagged. So I feel like you've got a good, rigorous, and a very smart board to make sure that you never have to worry about the finances on the property, and that your employees who enjoy living there don't have to worry about the stability of that property either. With that, next steps, so we will go visit Foothill De Anza Board of Trustees in early June. The corporation board meets again on June 15th, and of course fiscal year starts July 1st. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions. And then again, the action we're looking for is an approval of the MVW Resident Corporation Board budget.
All right, thank you. I've had ample opportunity to ask you lots of questions during my meetings, but I'll turn to the board for any clarifying questions. Trustee Conley?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you so much for the presentation tonight, and thank you to the board of the housing site for all of the work that they've done to make sure we're not having to spend all of our time in our school board meetings worrying about this project. It is kind of remarkable to realize how much time we have back now to focus. You mentioned it is anticipated that the occupancy rate will be 87% in June. When I think back to the original pro formas, I think we had been shooting for a 90% occupancy rate. Is that still the same to have a 90% goal, or has that shifted?
That's a great question. We are in discussion with the board about should there be a deliberate occupancy target to provide for vacant units for new hires and for recruiting. Of course, Foothill De Anza has a different set of criteria for how they want to utilize the housing. So it's been an interesting conversation so far about the interests and what we think might be a sweet spot. So I don't think 87% is going to be our goal. It's going to probably be 90 to 95% if I had to guess based on conversation. But I think the board will want to take that up and probably make some form of policy around that so that everybody knows that, yeah, it's normal to have some units that are available, especially during the spring when the school district's hiring.
And can you share a little bit of the breakdown of which units are filled? So Foothill Dance's units versus city units versus our units?
I'll try. I think that Foothill De Anza is approaching 2/3 of their units. I recall that the district's at about 80%, if I remember right. And the city's lagging a bit. They're more like, I think they've got 7 or 8 of their 20 units committed. But recently they have reinvigorated their internal recruiting, and there's actually been a lot more activity recently of interested parties. And we're in regular contact now with the housing staff. So I think we'll see that pick up as they get into the summertime. So that's my recollection. I'm sorry I didn't bring the detailed notes.
Thank you.
Trustee Lambert?
Yeah, I have a few questions. One of them will follow up with trustees, trustee Conley's comments. So why are we lagging 64%, 80%? When this was advertised a while ago, this was going to go like hotcakes,
Yeah.
right? And no problem. What really is happening? Okay.
Yeah, we're learning as we go. And what we're seeing is that each of the 3 public agencies that are referring potential residents to us, each of them have their own internal issues that cause people to either have sort of a robust attitude about it's time for me to upgrade my housing and I'm going to move on something, as opposed to, gosh, I keep hearing about budget cuts, layoffs. I'm not sure right now is a good time for me to, make a commitment, especially on a 1-year lease. I think that's in this last, I'm going to say this last, well, from say the holidays to about now, that's kind of been the flavor that we're picking up. Foothills had more success moving more quickly because they had a lot of pent-up demand, and it's been out there in their organization for quite a while. And they're just drawing from a much larger pool of all kinds of different employees. So that's kind of our take on it right now. It's certainly not, what we're not hearing is that it's an issue about rents too high. But what we do hear is, yeah, but it's still more than I think I can afford right now. There's just too much uncertainty in my household with incomes or with what's ahead. So even though we're remarkably low on the rents, it's not moving the needle. Yeah.
Well, and I think from our perspective as Mount View Wisman, going through reductions has caused an unsettledness, right? And do I want to move? Am I going to be here? That sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like you said, learning a lot. I have a couple of financial questions, but I'd like to have another operations question. Did the board decide to get a new project manager, operations manager for the?
A property manager?
Yeah, property manager. Yeah.
They have not taken action on that yet. It has been discussed that it's probably out on the horizon for an RFP process in the near future. We wanted to get this budget put to bed, and we wanted to get as close to stabilization on the lease up as we could before we really move into that process. And my advice has been, both when I was working for your district and now for the new board, that probably the worst time you could change property managers is in the middle of a lease up. It's just enormously disruptive. But I think there's certainly going to be a period where we feel like, okay, now we've got the bandwidth that we can really go out and see what the market has to offer. Yeah.
Then a couple of financial questions. Can the board get access to the financial reports, quarterly reports and things like that? And
yes, we get monthly financials. that flow through. And we haven't really landed on whether this new board is going to want, say, a quarterly roll up or what kind of reporting they're going to want in the long term. But yeah, we get full financials on a monthly basis.
Then how often where that's posted, and can the public get access to it also? No.
That's a good question. Certainly, we've not had anybody ask for them. But we are building a online platform for all the documents so that they can be certainly shared with the board and easily retrieved. But we really haven't crossed that threshold yet.
Yeah, well, I'll ask for it, and, it's not urgent, right? You have many things to do, but I think that should be in your plans, have regular financial statements and accessible to the board and to the public as needed. Then the real question I have is, we have income of $2.7 million, and we have expenses around 1.4. So, and this is with 64% rough occupancy. That we're targeting to have sort of break even on a project like this. Maybe that's startup cost, or things haven't settled down yet. Could you explain what that is? It seems unusual, right?
It's wonderfully unusual, especially for this kind of housing project.
Disturbingly unusual,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, when we set the ball in motion to lower the rents at the beginning of this year, we went through a rigorous process and built several different pro formas to try to model out what would be an ideal balancing of all the variables. And without debt on the property, and with a partner now to help get the building filled up and occupied, we came to the conclusion that we should always err on a very conservative side. So having excess revenues, if you will. For example, we don't know what the new board will decide ultimately as the level of reserves they want to hold. Some people right now say, gosh, you've got 2.5 million. That's wonderful, because most projects don't have any. Well, but do we know that that's the right number for this property? And likewise with the smaller fund, we don't know if that small amount is actually enough. So there's still some financial planning work that needs to happen with the new board to figure out some of those longer term aspects of this. I guess what I would say as of tonight is they've got a great jump off point to go through that process, because there's not stress. And even if we get to 87%, and we have 13% units vacant, we still don't have financial stress in the short term.
Yeah, so I mean, that's great. I think just be sensitive to the public optics of that.
Yes.
Affordable housing project for teachers, and in my opinion, the school district does not want to be making, excessive profits. We should be paying ourselves back to some extent for the money we invested in it out of our general fund. But, there's a public perception that I think needs to be managed well.
Yeah.
If we're going to do this.
Thank you.
Can I chime in? I think it was the expectation of both agencies that there be some money that's spin back, right, to the districts. And as it will be something that our board will need to discuss, right, use of those funds, because there will always be some. And I mean, one thought, because I've been thinking about it, is that is a capital project. It's very logical that money could spin back and be used for capital projects within the district that will then alleviate the need or frequency perhaps of a bond to be issued and paid for by our public again. And it's not going to be that much money. It's not going to be enough to build more classrooms or anything like that. But we have some pretty, I wouldn't call them routine, but predictable facility items that we know need to be done, that we often wait for a bond to handle, which really aren't necessarily capital improvements. If you think of upkeep of our campuses and painting the buildings, or you think of playground replacement, or you think of slurry sealing playgrounds and restriping, right? Those aren't really bond type projects, so they end up being by most districts because they just don't have the funding to do that. And so what if we think about the fact that we can offer a incredibly low rent to our people, and we can also generate revenue that save our taxpayers money in the longer term and keep our facilities up to date, right? Without having to wait for yet another bond passage.
Oh, thank you.
Vice President Henry.
I was curious, I know that at the beginning, when the units first opened, there were some issues with operations, things like that. What are you hearing at this point? And I guess a related question of, well, that's one question.
We've come a long ways. The early chapter of occupancy was rough. It just, there were so many unfinished things and things were moving so fast. The environment in the building and the property manager's office is much more, it's calm. I would say the most activity these days is around providing tours to prospective residents, which is great because we're showing it to people who may end up being part of that community, and they're going back to their agencies and saying, "Whoa, you should go check it out." So having the capacity to do that and do it really well, I think is a symptom to me that things are a lot better. And a lot of the systems like the financial reports and paying the bills and getting all the accounts transferred from this place and other places to that place has taken a lot of work and a lot of time. For example, PG&E, there must be 40 or 50 accounts. No, there's more because there's an account for every single apartment. So getting all of those accounts in PG&E's bureaucracy moved from here over there, so they quit sending bills to my friend here and send them to where they can get paid. Unbelievable amount of time and energy expended on that. So we've been working through that, trying to get things more sort of stable and calm and predictable and routine. Because running a building should be routine and it should feel calm. So that's where we want to go. But yeah, I think we're getting there. Yeah.
And I was curious, I'm sure on the day-to-day, it's the property manager who would have any relationship with the neighboring building.
Yes.
But have you had any interaction, any impression of how our residents are accessing amenities, if there are any issues that have come up?
Good question. The answer is yes, there's issues that we're working on as we speak. The owner and the property manager from the Sevens, the market part of the property, came to the last board meeting during budget discussion and essentially presented their operating budget for what we call the shared amenities, which we're accountable for anywhere from 16 to 20% of the costs. And I think without getting into a lot of detail tonight, let's just say that there's work to be done to get them to understand that no, that we want transparency with your costs and how you're allocating those costs to our building and our property. And there's some complicating things like, well, we were told that all those amenities would be open to our residents, but it turns out that, well, actually some of them aren't. And so there's been some angst about that and some incomplete communications from their side. So yeah, we're trying to like each other and get along. But I think they're behind our curve in terms of lease up. And if you may recall, their project got finished after ours did. So they're still struggling to go through that same period of dealing with things. One of the things we did hear them say was that they've hired a energy consultant to go through all of their accounts with PG&E because they think they were assigned the wrong categories. So once the dust settles a little bit on that, we should see some financial benefit. And we may actually see a resource that we can apply to our side of the property and make sure we're getting the best deal that we can too. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Trustee Conley.
Thank you. Something that has come up for me from these discussions and listening to my colleagues, we established a nonprofit corporation, basically, and nonprofit corporations don't necessarily make all of their financials public, but as a government entity, we do make all of our financials public. And so I'm curious about where is kind of the middle ground for what is appropriate and asking the nonprofit housing corporation to provide publicly about financials because they are ostensibly tied to government entities. And that might be something for the board to explore. I think the 990s would be available regardless. Maybe the 990s become when this presentation happens, the 990s are also included in this presentation, and that's the financial disclosures that are happening here. I'm not sure what the most appropriate format is, but I have experience on other nonprofit corporation boards, and it is very, very different from being on a school board.
Yeah, and this one's unique because, well, unique to my experience, which is that it's governed by the Brown Act. So that layer kind of puts us in a strange gray zone. But yeah, I appreciate your comments. That's exactly the kinds of things we need to work out and figure out the best, what's appropriate. Yeah.
Any further clarifying questions? Vice President Henry?
I guess I was curious, since that board is governed by the Brown Act, where are the agendas posted?
So they get posted at the front door of the property the Friday before Monday meetings. And the property manager has been advised that if people ask for it, that they can get copies from the property manager once it's posted. Yeah.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I will now open public comment on this item. Any member of the public in person wishing to speak, please turn in a speaker card. And if you are online, please use the raise hand function and I will allocate time. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll return to the board for discussion. Any further discussion? I'll save my comments at some point. Everyone needs to hear me talk during those meetings a lot. So Vice President Henry.
I would say, and this is on me, I didn't put this into questions in advance, but a comment for next time is I would like to see, along with the presentation about the budget, the actual budget that we're approving tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we're asked to approve a budget. That's why I asked for the financials. We should be able to look at these first before we approve it. And it's just, I think, this is as you mentioned in your view graphs, this is our job. And what we're responsible for, and that is what the public is holding us responsible for. So help us do our job.
Okay.
And look good. And, what a relief. I said, just thank you very much for this, because boy, that was last couple of years going through this was challenging. So thank you.
Trustee Conley?
And echoing that, and it might be that, I don't know if it's possible for that budget to come back as a consent item for our next meeting, possibly. Again, what financial disclosure is the appropriate financial disclosure? But if we're approving a budget and we haven't seen a budget, I think you can hear we're all a little uncomfortable with that idea. So, and I don't think it would disrupt the timeline for the presentation of Foothill De Anza, because our next meeting is May 28th. So there would be plenty of time. If that's possible, I wouldn't mind, I don't want to gum up the works, but I wouldn't mind delaying a vote until then so that we have the actual document that we're approving.
Support that.
Yep, the direction sound okay? All right. Yeah, I think for me, I think we've, it's been great to have this off of this dais and going elsewhere. So I'm really, we get to talk about a lot of these things. Our board appointed, so, not talking about me, but the other folks we appointed are incredibly diligent and they're great experts on this. And they've really worked really hard to balance some of the constraints that we have, right? Like we want to, I think to some of the earlier comments, we're balancing, we want competitive rents. We don't want to make a ton of money on this. And we also don't want, in the interests of our staff, from my perspective on there, I don't speak for the rest of the board, we don't want large wait lists for folks where it's not an attractive option for them. So trying to balance these things, I think the folks on there have been very thoughtful. And also their expertise has been extremely useful in stress testing some of the costs and budgets of our our market rate partners on there. So it's been really great working experience on there. So I also just want to thank those folks who aren't here tonight. They've dedicated a lot of time and a lot of brain power. But yeah, I think for me, this is working as we all intended it to, where we take this away from our attention here. We come back, check in on it every so often to make sure the folks there are managing our community's investment in this very well. But we've delegated it to some very skilled people. So any further discussion? Seeing none. Okay, I think so we'll see this on consent for the action at the next meeting. With the we'll figure out the right level. And yes, and we, to the earlier questions about the Brown Act, we do get members of the community come to our meeting and observe us. It's open to the public. Anyone can come by when we have it. It's not as interesting as these meetings for them, but thank you. With that, we will now move on to item 9B. This is award of preliminary services agreement for the district-wide outdoor learning project, EF Brett and Company Incorporated. Dr. Westover, I think you can present this.
Yes, and Jason is also going to help me present this evening because it's a little bit more nuances to it than normal for construction contracts.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. So this is the award of the preliminary services agreement with the EF Brett and Company for the outdoor learning project. It was put out to bid in a procurement as a leaseback project. Quick history on it: the leaseback RFP was issued on the 9th of March. There was a mandatory pre-proposal meeting held on the 1st of April. There were 3 firms in attendance at that meeting, so 3 qualified bidders. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, and then bids were due on the 24th of April. We unfortunately only received 1 proposal from those 3 firms. So given we only received 1, we wanted to reach out to the other 2 firms in attendance to see, if there was a reason why they didn't submit a proposal. 1, unfortunately, had just received a large project a couple days prior to the due date. And given this is a larger project across 8 sites, they didn't feel they had the manpower to adequately manage it, which we appreciate because it does require some proper management the way this project is laid out. The other firm didn't feel like they could be competitive with the other 2, seeing the list, so they decided not to propose as well. So we had 1 proposal to review. Both the district and Greystone West and legal counsel went through that proposal to ensure that it met all of the RFP and contract requirements, which it did. So then we get to the budget. So we're going to go the other way than we did earlier, unfortunately. So the available funds for this project were $10,067,024. The current proposed guaranteed maximum price from EF Brett and Company is $11,462,000 and some change. It's just under a $1.4 million overage. It's 13.8% if you want to look at it that way. So we dug into it. There's a few main factors, but the 2 that we kept coming back to was 1, some of you may recall when this project was first budgeted, it was significantly different. It was in the midst of COVID, it was true outdoor classrooms. So it was singular or a couple areas of classrooms in one space on each campus. through the community meetings, the project development, the programming, that morphed into a project where there's a number of different smaller outdoor areas spread across the campus, which is a lot. Um, the production rate to build something like that is a lot lower. It takes a lot more labor, it takes a lot more equipment, it takes a lot more moving of parts and pieces. So that drove the price up. The other piece is this is primarily a civil project. There's a lot of grading, paving, concrete, planting, equipment, material deliveries, all which are dependent upon petroleum, which, as you know, right now, the petroleum fuel market is volatile and increasing daily. So that really affected the bid price as well. The trades that were petroleum driven were quite a bit higher than when we originally budgeted this several years back. So with that, the additional funds would come from the Measure P program contingency, which is in part what that contingency is for. Some projects are under and you get back to that contingency, some are over. There's a reason that's in the bond program. One good thing to note after that bad news is the contractor, EF Brett and Company, is very experienced with school construction. They're very experienced with projects that span multiple sites within a construction project, and they're experienced within your district. They've done the window replacement project, phase 1 and 2, that were done a couple years ago. They did the final phase of the HVAC project that spanned 5 different sites. So they're familiar with the sites, they're familiar with the people, and they're familiar with the expectations, which given a project of this magnitude and complexity, I think that is very important. So I think all in all, it is a good contractor that did propose on the project. So with that, the contract would be awarded in 2 phases. First phase tonight being the preliminary services agreement, and that's in the amount of $2,189,600. And what that is for submittals and material procurement. So the contractor can jump right on getting products approved by the architect and district and get those ordered so they're on site for summer construction. The second phase of the award would be for the balance of the GMP contract, guaranteed maximum price contract, which would come back to you on the 28th. So that gives a couple weeks for the legal counsels to dial in the contract and get it to where it needs to be to meet all of the leaseback requirements. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any clarifying questions from the board? Trustee Conley?
Yes, this is more for Dr. Westover, probably. What is the remaining amount of Measure T contingency that we do have for our projects?
Can we ask Jason one question? I'm gonna run down to my office.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Trustee Lambert?
Sure. Explain to me why this is being done as a leaseback arrangement rather than we're just paying it right out of our general obligation bond money.
Well, we thought the leaseback was probably the most appropriate method for this project because it allows for opportunity, 1, to order materials ahead of time with the preliminary services agreement, and 2, it allows the district to work with the contractor on staging, logistics, site layouts, that sort of stuff ahead of the project. So other than getting a hard bid contractor and them just kind of doing the project as they see fit within the 60-day window or 45-day window, it allows some flexibility for the district to really work with the contractor, for us to really work with the contractor to make sure things are dialed in and delivered on time.
How does the leaseback, facilitate that?
So the leaseback with the preliminary services agreement allows the district to engage the contractor earlier than the design bid build process would. So basically, design bid build, you would receive your bid, you'd award, and then you give the contractor the notice to proceed. So you're off and running. With the leaseback, it allows for some negotiation and coordination up front prior to going into the project hot and heavy at the start of summer to work out those details to make.
What that does give you the contractor some security that ahead of time for the project, or?
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
Yeah, I guess I'm not following this quite either, right? Why we're doing this.
Okay, so it allows with the leaseback and the preliminary services, it allows the district to work with the contractor on schedule.
Yeah.
So if the contractor has a schedule and there are certain things that want to be tweaked or massaged a little differently, you can work with the contractor on that and negotiate how they're going to go about the job, where they're going to put their staging areas, that sort of thing. Or with a hard bid, it's more of, they have 45 days to do it however they see fit. So there's definitely a benefit there. There is a benefit of allowing them to look at the drawings a little bit ahead of time as well. So they have some time to work with the architect, and if there's constructability issues or things that needs to be changed, they can be negotiated. For example, one of the reasons we were able to get down to that 11 million number is the contractor saw flagstone paving, which the product was fairly expensive. It was $100 a square foot, where you could get other comparable materials for about $30 a square foot. With no overall impact to the project. So that's one benefit of working with the contractor ahead of time, is you can see issues before they come up and help and reduce cost as well.
As I understand this too, maybe this is what my concern is that under this arrangement, that if these projects go over budget, basically it puts us, the school district is obligated to go forward with this, because we've leased our, land to the contractor. And so, I mean, it puts us a lot of pressure. It's like a guaranteed payment. You go over, we're gonna have to pay it, right?
Well, so there is a contingency in that contract amount, and the way the leaseback is written by legal counsel, the change orders are almost essentially treated the same as a design bid build. So that change order, even though there's a contingency, those items come before the board for ratification, if you will. So it is subject to review and approval.
I'd just like to see, as the contract is set up, to make sure that we don't go over budget. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what I see too is that, with multiple sites here, and construction uncertainties and things like this, each site could easily go over budget, right? And add up to even a little bit, and add up to a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a lot of different work areas. So if you have one issue at one and it compounds to the others, you're absolutely right. I mean, that would happen in a hard bid scenario too, design bid build scenario. I think one of the benefits is you have a working relationship with that leaseback contractor. So if there is an issue that comes up, it's not necessarily, hey, there's an underground storm line here, pay me $50,000 to move it. There can be some negotiation and discussions on how best to move forward.
Yeah, and I think you use the right word, manage. And so, that's up to, I think, have the board informed, not at the end of the project, or not when the cost overruns come up, but sort of regular through the process. It's a short build time, right?
Very short.
So, maybe that's not even reasonable. So,
I mean, we could, essentially, it's a 3 months construction schedule. There may be some materials that come in after, so say 4 months. We could come to the board monthly with the change order, whatever change orders arise to that date. We can certainly do something like that. And we're monitoring it. We don't want it to go over budget. We're discussing with Rebecca every week, or if not more, to make sure that we stay at that budget, because we're already, asking to award over. We don't want to go farther. Mr. Conley?
If I may tie to that, maybe it's something along the lines of the way we get our weekly board updates. I think the concern, and I agree, is sometimes things happen over the summer and we find out after, right? And we don't want to end up in a situation like that. Will the board updates be continuing over the summer? And if so, is this information that could be included in our board updates? And that would keep us apprised. And then if for some reason we need to call a special meeting, then our board president would be well informed and able to do that.
yeah, and I think too, I mean, part of it is the schools sites are looking very much forward to these projects, right? And they need to be completed in a certain time so that kids can go back to school. So we want things to move through. And so we keep it controlled, so we're not surprised at the very end. We have to spend all sorts of money and time at the very end to get these things done.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and we keep, our we call them PCO logs, proposed change order logs. They're updated daily, so I can provide those to Rebecca for those updates, so she can see where we are as of that particular week. And
yeah, another thing, at least leaseback, this has come up with other civic organizations and the community too. School districts have very few ways we can get money from, okay? And unlike other organizations. So it's important that when we do these lease backs, we still control our costs very well. So.
Any other questions? I had one or two. I'd asked about the cost benchmarks with the initial compared to the guaranteed minimum price, and whether it was reasonable, basically, was my question going into it. And I think we mentioned that we benchmarked it against the schema design. Did we ever update that across the process to see as it evolved where the costs were kind of?
Yeah, we did. We update our estimates as we get the different drawing sets. I think the downside here is with the number of community meetings, the number of homes, those drawings were constantly changing. And so we kind of got the DSA submittal sets the same time as the Division of State Architect did. So there was a little time to make adjustments at that point.
Okay. Yeah, and then we just had the bond report. So I'd like also just tried to like look against the Vargas outdoor learning. I think that ran us like 1.4 roughly, which I think is per site less than or more, a little bit more than this is gonna list out. So is that kind of like a useful benchmark for reasonableness of what we're gonna?
Yeah, I mean, I think the direction of the board all along was to have the parity and close to equal dollars per site. And yeah, you're right, Vargas had a little bit more, I think, probably because you had the most need at Vargas for greening and outdoor learning. But yeah, consistently through the sites, it's pretty well balanced. Some are up, some are down, just based on need.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Conley?
And I believe in the original budget allocations, for example, the middle schools were allocated more funding. So this isn't necessarily every site is getting the exact same money, but some of the sites are, the middle schools, for example, are larger, and so they need a little bit more funding. Did we learn anything from our experience at Vargas and the work that's been done there that we're applying to kind of to how this is being rolled out and tweaks at the sites? And then we still have Custer and Mistral be the following year because summer school is being hosted there this year. Do you think there will be learnings from this summer that we can apply to those sites?
Yeah, I mean, so to answer the first part of that question, yes, there were some materials identified at Vargas that aren't necessarily holding up as well with student traffic, certain types of cobblestone paving, the outdoor marker boards, whiteboards. So those have been addressed and updated in this next round of projects to make sure that the materials hold up a little better. I mean, they're not large problems, but they're issues that have been identified and they've been addressed in the second round. And I'm guessing that same principle will carry over to Castro Mistral next summer because there's new materials in these phases that weren't at Vargas also. So there's certainly an opportunity to learn from any issues that arise.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Oh. Okay, seeing no further questions, I'll now turn for public comment. Any member of the public in person wishes to speak, turn in the speaker card. If you're online, use the raise hand function. Then I'll see how many speakers we have before allocating time. See one speaker online, so we'll give 3 minutes. Nyung, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you for the presentation and thank you, Trustee Lambert, for asking about how this this contract was awarded using a lease back. That doesn't make it does. It feels like a weird way of going about things, especially this is a bond, and so I hope that if the trustees are not comfortable with it, ask more questions or figure out a way to make sure that, I guess, like I have the same fear as Trustee Lambert, especially if this is something that probably a lot of site all at once is going to go over budget. And then that is going to take more money out of, the funds that's supposed to go to our students. One more thing I want to add is that I heard recently the soil in the Vargas garden, living classroom garden, wasn't done properly. So it wasn't helping the plants grow. So I don't know if that was addressed or if that was brought aware with this group. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now return to the board for discussion. Trustee Conley.
I forgot how much contingency is remaining, Dr. Westover?
So in our contingency fund, we have approximately 5.3 million. And then we also have unallocated funds available.
Thank you.
Now turn to discussion. If anyone, yeah, I think I'm heartened that we've, I think, clarified during the presentation that kind of we also have legal counsel review all these to make sure that they're fulfilling the requirements. I know contracting is heavily regulated, and I think it's one thing that I want to make sure we get right on these. And then the reference point for Vargas, I think, was useful for me just because it was a different procurement strategy and it was also a different contractor. And so it gives me kind of somewhat of an independent to make sure we're getting reasonable estimates on how much this should cost. So that was helpful for me, I think, to do this. So I think, I'm in support of this. Any other comments? Do we have a motion to act?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the preliminary services agreement. Is that correct? In the amount of $2.189 million, which will be issued to EF Brett and Company, Inc. This contract is charged to Measure T.
I just want to clarify that it's the small amount, but I want to make sure we get it right. It's the amount, you're requesting the amount presented, right? 2.18.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
My apologies. $2,189,600.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. We will now move to item 9C, multi-tiered system of support data management system. Director Jinbo, Mr. White, I think you'll present the staff report.
Okay, good evening, trustees. Coordinator White and I are pleased to bring you the next step in our MTSS work, and Coordinator White will start us off.
Okay, and I'll start you off with our alignment with the strategic plan. And here you can see that we're aligned with the strategic plan, specifically with fully developing multi-tiered system of supports and establishing systemic approaches for student-directed learning. So this is about looking at a proposal for a unified student data platform. And before we get into the why of this proposal, I'd first like to give a brief overview about whole child data, what it looks like, and how it's related to academic achievement. As we know, students are not just simply vessels waiting to receive knowledge, right? They're complicated humans with a variety of needs that impact their ability to attend to the academic demands of the school day. And in order to reach all students, instruction and/or intervention must account for the mix of academic, behavioral, and social emotional needs that exist in every classroom. So effectively addressing those needs requires a lot of intentional planning. And one of the challenges that we currently face is that when we are trying to get whole child data, we have to go to multiple different kinds of systems to access it. Go to the next slide. So here you can see some of our current data platforms. Of course, we have PowerSchool, our student information system. iReady and Elevation, as you know, are critical systems that we use, but we also have our SEL survey through Panorama. And then we have two homegrown platforms. One is an MTSS website that John Anker, our Director of Technology, has built and manages.
And then the other one is one, the student services data platform is one that I have built and manage. And so that those two require a lot of man hours throughout the school year, in addition to our regular duties from John and me. If you are a staff person in our district and you're trying to access whole child data, this is what you have to do, right? So here you see about, 7, 8 plus different kinds of systems that you have to go to. If you want to pull comprehensive data for a student, and as you can imagine, it inevitably results in some systemic barriers when it comes to having cost meetings, MTSS meetings, 504 meetings. We're really trying to put together a comprehensive picture of the students so we can meet all of their needs when we're supporting them. So, again, some of those challenges, our current practice means having all the data. Our current practice, complicates getting all the data that we want when we want it, and it can limit the effectiveness of whole child decision making. And if you're the only person or one of the few people at a school site that really understands how to pull that, as you might imagine, you might have a lot of people coming to you, and it can be overwhelming. So, and again, we talked about an additional challenge being the maintenance of those homegrown websites and how it pulls from other core responsibilities. So, which is why we released an RFP earlier for a unified student data system. And the advantage to a data system and the intention of it is to remove barriers to access whole child decision-making by bringing student data together in one place, by doing things like housing the MTSS workflow, and by managing similar workflows like 504 meetings. And then also having a data system that is adaptive as our districts and our students' needs evolve. And then this visual contrasts with our current model, where this is kind of what a unified data system does for us. It brings different data points to the teachers, so they only have to go to one place or to the school site or to the district, so that our time can be spent planning for students rather than working to gather information. So following a competitive RFP process, we're proposing the district adopt EduClimber as our unified data system, which is a product from Renaissance Learning. And our RFP process took place over the winter and spring. A team that included certificated staff, district and site administrators, and classified staff reviewed seven proposals using a weighted rubric. From those 7, 3 finalists were chosen for product demonstration, and EduClimber was recommended for contract award. And here's some of the features that EduClimber offers that led to this recommendation. EduClimber consolidates all of our data into a single student view that is customizable and manageable. Supports our MTSS workflow processes and would allow us to manage 504 plans. Based on criteria we select, EduClimber automatically flags students meeting intervention criteria and can alert teachers, administrators, and counselors. And it allows for robust academic, behavioral, SEL, and attendance data analysis that supports decision-making all the way from district-wide decisions to an individual teacher planning for their classroom. And here's a example student profile. Just want to note this is not actual student data or even, I think, an actual picture of a child. I think it might be AI generated. But it provides, as you can see here, this, well, actually you might not be able to see because it's very small. I can tell you that this profile gives you academic data about the student. It lets you know whether the student is on track or off track for meeting benchmark goals. Also has demographic information, and it has behavior information in it as well. And so, and also from this profile, you can drill down into more detailed data points. So just to compare our current system, in order to get this information in this one spot, you'd have to go to like four different systems to pull that information and then bring it together. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Karen, who is going to talk about, Director Jimbo, who is going to talk about what implementation would look like, as well as costs and next steps.
Okay, thank you. So being a new platform for everyone, we'll take a phased implementation approach. Anticipating contract approval this evening, we will move into configuration and customization based on our district needs. So in 26-27, once the platform is live, we'll engage in a year of customization to align with and embed within the MVWSD way. We'll engage our leadership team in professional learning with the platform. while having key personnel trial the customizations and provide feedback to inform long-term design. During this customization and professional learning period, we'll continue to utilize our homegrown MTSS site for managing our cost meetings, and Panorama will remain for our SEL survey until we're ready to move into our full implementation year. So in 27-28, we anticipate readiness for full use of our customized features across all school sites, where personnel will have a single access point for whole child data. Here we have a breakdown of cost estimates for year 1 and beyond, should a contract renewal be approved. We have an initial expenditure of $45,920 for EduClimber that includes onboarding and professional learning. We note a cost savings of a district office administrator here as we phase out our homegrown student services data site that was developed and maintained by Coordinator White. Over time, we anticipate a cost savings with the renewal of the Renaissance EduClimber contract, as well as phasing out Panorama and iReady to SEL survey and teacher-created common assessments within EduClimber. So as next steps, we are asking the board to recommend to approve a 1-year contract with Renaissance Learning. Within 4 weeks of the contract approval, we would have initial setup and the phased implementation beginning in 26-27. So with that, I will turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the board? Trustee Reed?
I just had a question about the software. Is it closed platform or cloud-based?
Can you say that again? Is it closed platform or cloud-based? They do use a cloud-based platform just to be able to sync and enable access from multiple users, and for our data to go up into to their system. Yes.
I just wonder about security with that
Yeah.
cloud-based,
Yeah.
with recent data breaches and a lot of information being stored on one platform versus
Right.
multiple, which is why sometimes when a lot of this confidential data is consolidated to one, it is done on a closed platform.
Yeah, so one of the things that was one of the things that we looked into and that we discussed with vendors during the RFP process. So one of the reasons why we actually went with EduClimber was because of the different vendors that we talked with, that they had the most closed system. For example, they have their own data system, they have their own data center. They use as much proprietary closed systems as they can, even though it's a cloud system. We were impressed with the level of data security. In fact, they gave us an information security overview where they specifically go into detail about their security practices, which we'd be happy to share with the board.
And then one follow-up question is, because this is going into the cloud system, will this be an opt-in, opt-out for parents and families who don't want to take the risk for data breach for large amounts of student data?
Just like many of our existing systems that make use of cloud software architecture, this would not be an opt-in or opt-out. It would be a data platform that would be compliant with FERPA and HIPAA and existing data practices.
Vice President Henry.
I'll say this is a question I asked Mr. Bear, but I thought I'd ask it here just to get everybody to hear the answer. At the last meeting, we approved a renewal of the contract with School City, which is also from Renaissance Learning. And I think I'm better understanding now why that renewal would happen. With that, it's actually a different question than I asked him. Would School City continue if we renew this contract? Would it still be a separate, and how are the two things used?
Yeah, do you want me to answer that? Okay. So School City, we are planning on using School City as a benchmark assessment platform. So it is where we create and administer assessments and where that assessment data goes to. In that sense, it functions similar to other assessment platforms like iReady, like Elevation, where that holds that assessment information. What EduClimber would do is it would pull all of that data, including data from School City, into one place and make that accessible for our teachers. For example, if a classroom teacher wanted to have a data wall where they were examining, where they need to target intervention in their classrooms, if they're building, student groups or doing centers or things like that, they would be able to do that and have the assessments that we're pulling from School City, available to them.
Thank you. That helps. And my other question was just about the contract term length. Right now, you have it from June 1st of this year to next May 31st, which I understand the June 1st, so you can get started before the end of this year. Would you anticipate like bringing a renewal to us next May? Otherwise it's a little bit before the end of school.
Yeah, we have actually a similar situation with Panorama where the contract ends prior to June 1. So we would bring it to the board prior to the expiration of the contract.
Trustee Conley?
Yeah, thank you. So there is a lot of angst kind of in the broader community around student data. And when I kind of read more about, to be clear, I don't think there's any perfect system that we're going to be able to find and use, and we need something that we can use. So we're trying to balance what we can do best to support students and also how we can best protect their data. When I read about EduClimber, they were acquired by Illuminate Education in 2017, so they're a subsidiary. Illuminate was acquired in like 2023 or 2022 by Renaissance. But in 2022, before it was acquired by Renaissance, they had a huge data breach. In New York, in California, there was a lawsuit brought by parents. It ended up being dismissed, the lawsuit around student data, but there were fines that were imposed. The Federal Trade Commission took action. I mean, there's an article from December of 2025 about the Federal Trade Commission taking action against Illuminate Education over a 2021 data breach. Now, Renaissance has said they have their own cybersecurity protocols, and when they acquired Illuminate, they updated and have a very different approach to student data. We haven't seen them have a breach or a hack. Is there a way that for the public and for the board, periodically we can get updates on how the cybersecurity is being managed for student data? Because it is of such high interest to our community.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to expand on that, we can absolutely provide updates as we learn them as well. We actually reached out after the Canvas. We reached out to Renaissance specifically to ask this question. And they did point us in the direction of the actual security tests that they take on their system on a regular basis. And again, we'll share that with you as well in terms of what the research that we received from Renaissance. And they're still providing us with further information with respect to the security issues that are highly public right now. So absolutely, we can provide that update as we get it.
Thank you.
Trustee Lambert?
Yeah, in evaluating this organization, EduClimb, did you have the opportunity to speak with users of the system?
RFP process.
We did not have an opportunity. Well, let me take that back. We did have an opportunity a couple years ago. Was it a year ago? Maybe more than a year ago, when we were doing just some initial research to what other platforms, other districts in Santa Clara County were using. I did reach out to a number of colleagues in other districts that were using platforms, I believe, including EduClimber.
Okay.
We also were provided a trial environment where we were able to explore the platform ourselves and see some of the different features on our own without it being a demo by the company.
Thank you. Another thing, I really like to thank you for these organizational charts, the flow charts. They're extremely valuable. I mean, you just look at them and you know there's a better way, right? So put it in words here, you're combining all of these evaluation tools into one package.
Yes.
Right, that then gets distributed to the teachers and the staff. And are we thinking about also reducing the number of assessment tools that we're using?
I will defer to.
This is a streamline, we're streamlining this process. That's sort of what I see.
So currently, yes. So currently as I mentioned in my last board update, we're reducing our usage of iReady next year with the intention of eliminating iReady as an assessment tool for 27-28 and moving toward our own homegrown created assessments for our students that will be put into our system. That's what we will use to evaluate student progress.
Maybe this is part of the Mountain View way, and that
Correct.
it's not your way, their way, and my way. It's
Our way.
the Mountain View way.
That's right. Right, and that's one of the reasons why we will keep School City is because of that process. And I do want to say, as we are learning more about how to create our process, and we've been consulting with Arenda too and learning, Coordinator White did spend quite a bit of time talking with the data person at Arenda about how this will all work and if our systems will be compatible, which they are.
Thank you.
I had a couple. So thank you for attaching the scoring rubric for the RFP. I think where Panorama shook out on that was useful in saying it's important for us to reevaluate things that we've onboarded with and see how they compare in the market. I noticed that like Branching Minds and EduClimber were like pretty close, 82 to 80. Was there any like qualitative factor that separated these two in your mind? Because right, like could be roll the dice that made an 82 versus an 80 on those scoring rubrics.
Yeah, I think there were a couple things. I think that it was EduClimber's presentation and the customization that EduClimber offers and the ability for us to navigate customization on our own rather than having to go through the company to do it. So for example, let's say a school has a really great idea for something that would save time. It's a form that they create or it's a practice that they want to initiate, and they want to use our data platform to do that. EduClimber has templates built in. There's a way that they can create forms where they can do that innately in the system, right? It's already there. Branching Minds, super great people, super great company. We would have to work with them to create it separately, right? So there were little things like that again, just very competitive bid or very competitive proposals and presentations that gave EduClimber the edge there. Yeah.
And then, thank you. That's helpful. And then I always ask this question, but right, like this is going to be, we envision this as a 1 year where we'll come back, but like on the implementation plan, it's 3 years, right? Like, so what are we looking for in the first year as we work with this? And what are the kind of things that we think are like, this is successful, we're going to go for this, so that like when you come back in a year from now and say, we want to renew this, like we can refer back to what you've told us here.
Absolutely. So some key points are our MTSS process and the fluidity in which our teams, our leadership team, our site teams are able to identify student needs and really tackle them with just seamlessly. And so the learning that our leadership team will do, that's going to be one marker is their feedback as well as the feedback of the trial use folks with respect to not only ease of use, meaningfulness to student profile, student support, and then also really what Coordinator White was saying, and the customization in making sure that all of the work we're doing is all aligned and it works. We're all working on that same path.
So that's sounds like in the form of like surveying staff and kind of collecting that and trying to aggregate.
All along the way. Yep.
Okay. Oh.
Yep.
Just wanted to add one little thing is that as the first year of implementation goes forward, there will be somebody from EduClimber that'll be assigned to our district working with us to customize things. So as we figure out, especially as we do our work with Arenda, they will work with us to figure out how we want things presented. What is the most effective, what is the most user-friendly way and what works best for our staff.
Great, thank you. Trustee Conley.
Just one last question. And this is more kind of a clarification for the public. So when I hear this software is FERPA and HIPAA compliant, to me, that says that this is software that student data will not be disclosed to a third party. It is not sold. It is not shared in any way. Could you share a little bit about what FERPA and HIPAA compliance means?
Yes. So I just want to be clear, this is not a HIPAA compliant tool. We don't utilize, that's what we utilize our electronic health record for, is the HIPAA compliance. For FERPA purposes, the platform itself is protective with respect to the people who need to know about that student are the ones who have access to that student information. That's in general what FERPA compliant means. We do not, and also it means no one else can come in from the outside to see that information or have access to that student information. It really is the need to know personnel that have access to it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll now turn to public comment on this item. If any member of the public wishes to speak in person, you can turn in a speaker card. And if you're online, you can use the raise hand function. I'll see how many speakers we have. Seeing none, I'll now move back to the board for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Trustee Reed for bringing up the issue of privacy and for Trustee Conley for continuing it. I think this is a good example of a powerful tool that's available. We're going to run into a lot more powerful tools. AI can transform our school district. But what's critical about all that is privacy, and that it's maintained here. And, I would sort of task the superintendent and the staff to see how we can best set up internal privacy systems so we can use, these options and tools to their fullest effect. I do work in a law firm, and yes, we use AI all the time, and it is secure. Nothing is going into the cloud. Okay, what goes in stays in. What's inside stays in. So there are, I guess, systems, that can give extreme privacy for something like a school district. I'm not a software engineer, so I don't know that kind of thing. I would even suggest, I know we're trying to reduce staff, but this is sophisticated stuff. If I would support, hiring people or contracting to help, help set us up to do this, because we're ready now. We see things that are very, very useful, but as a parent personally too, I would be concerned about information going outside all the time. So, thank you.
I think for when this comes back after this kind of year trial, I'd like to see data on staff feedback, what staff thinks about it, but also I'd like to see usage data to see if it's worth the investment to continue if people are actually using it for its intended purpose.
I don't want to make an assumption. I believe, President DeFazio, that you have some experience in cybersecurity. Más o menos. Okay. I am very much aligned with Trustee Lambert and Trustee Reed on this, in that I agree. This is, when we talk about our students' privacy, this is something that is going to give me a little bit of anxiety. And I think we all have children here, and so student privacy is of the utmost importance. It's figuring out which tools we can use effectively and maintain student privacy while also serving student needs best. And I appreciate the RFP process and the thoroughness of the review that you all have put into this, and that you went back to them after you heard about the Canvas breach and specifically asked them about cybersecurity, because I think it's going to be an ongoing issue that we're going to have to deal with as a district. And so, when we look a year out, that's a great opportunity to review. But if it would be nice to get an update somewhere along the way, maybe first trimester, second trimester. It could be in the written board report about if there have been any security changes or information like that, so that we and the public can be apprised of how it's progressing and hopefully avoid some of these kind of more newsworthy events that we've heard about with other firms.
Vice President Henry.
And I'll just agree with that. I know that when Power School had its breach, we were relieved to hear that locally, we did not have our information in part of that pool that was out there. I know for my own student who experienced the Canvas issues last week, that his school was able to say it's this specific information, like these pieces of information that Canvas even has about you. So I do have those same concerns about when we bring it all into one place. So I look forward to those updates, but I am very glad to hear that you were asking all those questions too.
Yeah, and I think, to Trustee Conley's point, I do work in security in my day job, but I think generally it's probably useful for us to, for Trustee Lambert's comment, get a handle on the student data that we kind of share with others. I think we have policies around this to make sure, and I think there's some discretion given to the superintendent to tighten those up and evaluate that. But I think the minimizing the amount of our students' personal information that we share around, I think should always be it's always at the top of my mind in a lot of ways. So, but I think, I think in general, there's a lot of cloud services out there, and it's less common for self-hosted ones, but I think we should keep looking for them. Okay, do we have, this is an action item. Do we have a motion?
What I'm doing here, I will move to Renaissance Learning Incorporated contract.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Looking forward to the year one update when this comes back.
A comment?
Yes.
Please. So thank you to Ms. Jinvo and Mr. White for the presentation. I don't think it should be lost on any of us, certainly not lost on me, that the position described in the presentation that has been reduced was Mr. White's position. So want to thank you for all your work on that and congratulate you as well. Can we yet publicly? That he has accepted an executive cabinet level position in Milpitas. So congratulations on that. But I thought it was important to point out.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will move now to item 9D, active transportation plan comments. Dr. Wester.
Maybe suggest a short break.
Short break? Yes, take a short bio break. We're back at 8:56 p.m. Now we move on to item 9D, active transportation plan comments. Dr. Westover.
Right. Good evening, trustees. So we're looking for a little bit of direction from the board. The city of Mountain View is currently updating its active transportation plan, which guides future planning throughout the city for walking, biking, rolling, getting around the city in not an automobile. The district has been involved with the planning process through multiple different meetings that they've held over the past few years. And as they're moving forward with this process, would the board like to consider directing the superintendent with the help of the board president in sending a letter to the city with feedback?
I return to the board for clarifying questions.
Would it be possible to create a board subcommittee to work with the superintendent on that letter? Subcommittee, so 2 people. I'm interested, but if that's not something the board's amenable to, that's okay too.
It's a question. We can. It's a question for staff. We can go to discussion afterwards. Any further clarifying question?
I guess a procedural question would be, can we do that tonight since it's not agendized?
And timing wise, how that would affect timing for when the city's moving.
And if not, when? I mean, when would you like to send a letter out, right?
The City Council's Transportation Committee is scheduled to consider the draft plan on June 16th, so we would want it to be done
Before then.
well before then. Correct.
So this has not appeared on their agenda yet. We just know that it's planned for that date. That does give us a little bit of time.
Any other questions? Let's see. Go ahead, Trustee Lambert.
Get to be
while I
honest with
formulate it.
you, I've read way too many strategic plans recently. These are very long and complicated. To be honest with you, I did not have time to go through this in the detail. Is there a section in here specifically about schools and school access?
You know, we spoke with the city about working with Safe Routes to School. I would need to review exactly what's in here that corresponds to the school.
Yeah. And that's one thing that should be in there.
They do look at youth population density. So they are looking at like who is most likely to be riding, walking, and wheeling.
Are any other
Are we
school
gonna comment?
districts
We in
part
comment
of the
mode right now?
planning? Or any other school districts a part of the planning?
Not to my knowledge.
MVLA is listed as one of the partners on the active transportation plan in the introduction. We are not.
And Los Altos School District, are they listed?
Probably not. It's Mountain View, right?
But they have a school and
I do think they also, just to clarify, I think in the acknowledgements, Dr. Westover is listed there as one of the participants in the active transportation technical committees.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Any suggestions on how you would like us to just throw out ideas and comments or?
It's just for questions right now. I'll turn to public comment, then we can have discussion for what we want to do. Yeah. Okay, so with no further questions, and I think we've identified some things we want to talk about. I will now open public comment on this item. Would any member of the public in person wishing to speak on this item? You can turn in a speaker card, and then anyone on the line, you can use the raise hand function to register your intent. I'll wait to see. Seeing no public comment, now we can return for discussion. Trustee Conley?
So looking at the way this is agendized, It says, you know, feedback on the active transportation plan, the board could consider directing the superintendent to prepare a comment letter to the City of Mountain View Transportation Committee regarding the plan and authorize the board president to help craft the letter with the superintendent. I don't think this precludes us giving direction to have it be a subcommittee of 2 trustees instead of just the board president in the agenda item, the way it's written. So I would propose that.
I think we might, I'm not opposed in general. I'm just, can we form a subcommittee for this action, within this action, right? Like, I'm not sure how procedurally.
Can we give direction to form a subcommittee?
We'd have to approve that at a subsequent meeting, then.
Do we have to, when we created a policy committee, did we agendize that? I know, like when we discussed the dress code, for example, I think within the dress code agenda item, we created a subcommittee and it had not been something we had planned ahead of time to move forward on it. And so as this is the active transportation plan agenda item, could we create a subcommittee to move forward on it with the superintendent?
I don't know the answer to that. Can query quickly.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
So maybe we can discuss and then we'll come back to, I think, maybe the format of how we structure it. But I think it's useful also to get board input on what we want to communicate if we choose to. I think there's a lot of, so if you look at the prioritization framework, so I actually read this whole thing and went through it a bunch, which is mostly just because it's my outside interest, not necessarily. But the prioritization framework that we developed explicitly accounts for being close to schools for something that they give more credit to in the score when they're prioritizing. And so a lot of engineering improvements to streets that are adjacent to our schools actually ranked very highly in the prioritization framework. So one thing I think is to communicate for us would be making sure we recognize the value of that and preserve those in case they're trying to reprioritize. But I think they've done, in general, fantastic work in making improvements that will help families around the district, right? I know local to me, there's Vargas improvements on North Wisman, which is a very intense road. Around Castro, there are significant improvements to a lot of those streets that are prioritized. And then there's also some nice discussion on green streetscaping, which I think is particularly when you're doing pickup and drop off and walking through neighborhoods. Tree shade helps you, for the younger ones, especially on the close to the summer, will help. So I think these are some of the high points. And as we go on, I think it's.
Have they made, what do you call it, sort of parking setbacks away from intersections, from corners? So there's visibility and so bikers can also,
Yeah, they explore a range of options for some of the they call them, there's 2 levels of potential improvements. One is reconstruction where and there's some cut sheets towards the end of the sheet where they have new curbs put in adjacent, which separate the bikes and then the cars as they redo some of those streets to make it more safe for families biking and walking nearby, and expanding some of the sidewalks as well. So there's a lot to be happy about for us. And I think they explicitly talk about our Safe Routes to School program, which we partner with them on very well.
Yeah, just one comment. I will write in and write my comments, send them to you at some point. In practice, the city often has very little control of the land use in the city. For example, SB 79 takes over about 20% of the city land. Any development that goes up, all they have to do is build 20% affordable housing, and they're clear of they can waive almost any public good, including sidewalk space and parking and everything else. So what concerns me of this plan as well as the other strategic plans the city is developing is that they sound good and they're very aspirational. But it's very difficult or unlikely that a lot of it is going to get implemented either because they don't control the land use or because they don't have the funding to do things. There's other priorities in the city. So doesn't mean we shouldn't comment on it. It's a caution and sort of to be practical, right? And I think that's, to try to frame it so what can actually get done.
Yeah, I think like within their improvements, right, like they have prioritized them and making sure that we say these things are important to us too, and we are, excited for them. I think helps them when they're trying to reprioritize things. I think will help preserve some of them. So I think that's the goal, is to make sure that the things that we think are valuable for our students, for our families, will show our support for and advocate for. Trustee Conley. Oh, sorry. I jumped the gun.
I have a lot more comments than I think I can fit into this meeting, which is why I feel it's important to have more input into the process. It could be that I direct those comments directly to the superintendent. But I think this is a situation where we should actually have a subcommittee to address this.
I think at the very least, right, like communicating to staff what are things we want to have in there. The actual letter would ultimately come back to us to approve the language of and make sure that it reflects what we want, right? Like, because it's going to be the communication of the whole board. We'll be voting on it together, which I think carries more weight than any of us individually.
There's one thought too of looking at it really closely. There's a lot of beautiful maps in here. And I think we have our own maps about where kids go to school and how things move around. I would, send those in and encourage those to be part of the process too. For each school, how many kids bike, how many drive a car, where do they come from? Try to beef up this, give it, clearly the staff likes this stuff, right? And they're responding to it. So if we can help them respond to our needs through graphics,
Yeah, through our partnership with Safe Routes to School, we actually do surveys. They come out and we take surveys of how the kids are getting to school. So that's already part of this because of our partnership with the city.
Trustee Conley.
So I'll point out one of the things that I find surprising in the active transportation plan that it doesn't currently have. It doesn't talk about shoreline itself. It talks about a lot of important streets. We have had multiple students hit on shoreline, trying to cross shoreline between El Camino and Central. And just, earlier this week, I was driving on shoreline and I saw 2 adults and then a child on a bike trying to cross in one of the lit crosswalks. They hit the light, they tried to cross, and the driver in front of me just sped up and drove straight through and almost hit them. And I was honking, other cars were honking. It was horrifying. It's not even mentioned in this plan. And I understand the prioritization that has to happen, but I think if we pull our own student incident data, I think that's a really important piece to share with them. And then I just think there's, I've attended some of the Safe Routes to Schools meetings, especially when they kind of first kicked off after we lost our student a few years ago on El Camino and Grant. And it was surprising to be in those original meetings and see they had the old school boundaries from before the change that went into place in 2018. So at that point, the planning for Safe Routes to School wasn't even including which communities actually attended which schools appropriately. They rectified that, obviously, when it was brought to their attention, and I think they've been a great active partner. But yes, I strongly support sending a letter and also really highlighting, when we look at the map, they show one school at Castro, Mistral, and the Latham Preschool. We know that's actually a 3-school site, and they face onto some different roads now. And um, there have been some traffic mitigations put in place over the last year or two, including more crosswalks on Latham Street, a 4-way stop on Chiquita and Latham. But one thing that I learned about in discussion with one of the traffic engineers for the city is we should probably try and get a crossing table near, it's not Gamma Way, it's the next street over. It's like Orion Court, maybe. Um, Mount Vernon, that's it, Mount Vernon Court, on Escuela, because a lot of our families that attend Castro are actually walking from that side of Escuela, and they're crossing in the middle of Escuela. They're not at the California intersection. They're crossing in the middle of Escuela and then walking down our fire lane to get to the Castro campus. And we currently have a traffic table at the entrance to the parking lot for Mistral. So it would be the same type of thing. It's a raised speed bump that's wider and painted with a crosswalk and a flashing light. Similarly on Shoreline, those lights should probably be stoplights at this point. They are not working as flashing yellow lights. It should be, and those are expensive to put in. So if we don't bring forward and ask that those types of things be prioritized, they're not going to make it onto the list.
I will say, just, it's interesting you raised that because they just activated the crosswalk at Sleeper and Grant. That's crosses from Sleeper into Cuesta Park, basically. And it isn't a flashing yellow, it is a flashing stop.
They've put those in a few places in the city, especially with some of the newer developments on El Camino. You'll experience that flashing red where a pedestrian can push the button.
Solid red and flashing red.
Yeah, and yet there are places that already exist that need the safety that those provide, that we haven't compensated for yet, if that makes sense. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole bunch of things in here that I think are fantastic, and I think we should cheer those on, and then we should offer some suggestions.
Yeah, I think constructive suggestions and, offers of partnership as well, I think are also things that we can do, right? Like as staff mentioned, that they use our survey data for different modes there that our students use and families use to get to school. We could potentially think through having some shared goals around improving those around, and the work that they're doing here should already be improving that, and we can partner with them. Just for example, right? There's good ways for us to build these partnerships and strengthen our relationship with the city.
So to the question.
The board is not able to create an ad hoc or subcommittee without it being an action item tonight.
So that being said, I knew that was the answer. So that being said, there's nothing that prevents two trustees from working together in the crafting of something, right? It doesn't have to be a committee or subcommittee or an ad hoc.
Within the constraints of the Brown Act, yeah. All right. Are there any other high-level themes that folks would want to highlight to discuss? All right. We're all in support of the letter here that's worked on through trustees and the superintendent. All right. Sounds great. Fantastic. Exciting. All right. Thank you, staff, for participating with them in the long haul on this. I know this plan has been in formation for quite some time now, and it's, hopefully, to Trustee Lambert's comments, we see fruition of the plans and they actually build it out. All right. Moving on to our next item. As I pull up my agenda. Item 9E, resolution honoring Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Superintendent Baer.
Yes, so May celebrates Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month and their contributions to our community, not just our community, but the broader community as well. We recognize the importance of the achievements of community members and reflecting thoughtfully on the history of pain and oppression they endured, and that continues. So this proposed resolution honors that. I also want to thank Trustee Reed for pointing out that we had not included Jose Antonio Vargas in the original, and it was an oversight. Apologies for that, but thank you for catching it.
Thank you, Superintendent Baer. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? I'll now move to public comment on this item. Any member of the public wishing to speak on it, you can turn in a card in person or use the raise hand function. I'll wait to see how many speakers we have. Seeing none, I'll now return to the board for a motion, and if we approve this, I would suggest we do a choral reading. Do we have a motion to approve this?
I move that the board approve resolution in support of recognizing Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, resolution number 01051426.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I'll start with Trustee Reed.
Whereas members of the Mountain View Westman School District Board of Education are honored to join communities across the country and recognize May 1st as the start of National Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, also referred to as AAPI Heritage Month, and
whereas racism toward Asian American Pacific Islander people has existed since they began immigrating to the United States, including the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, the 1886 establishment of prominent Mountain View residents of an by prominent Mountain View residents of an anti-Chinese social organization to expel Chinese residents from the city, the use of intimidation to stop the hiring of Chinese workers in Mountain View, and the 1887 arson that burned down San Jose's Chinatown. And
whereas the recent rise of violence against Asian Americans is part of a larger history of violence against communities of color, which means we must work together to create community-centered solutions that stop the violence in all communities. And
whereas politically charged and culturally insensitive rhetoric further encourages racism, prejudice, and hate crimes against Asian American Pacific Islander people, and
Whereas the model minority myth continues to divide communities of color, feed into racism, and contributes to the false notion that the Asian American Pacific Islander community does not experience racial oppression or is impacted by white supremacy, which ignores the Asian American Pacific Islander community's experience with Islamophobia, anti-Arab racism, and anti-South Asian violence, and
whereas approximately 17% of the Mountain View Westman School District students identify as Asian American Pacific Islander, and
whereas we also pause to recognize and celebrate the naming of two of our own schools, Amy and My Elementary School, after an extraordinary community member who was born and raised in Mountain View, and during World War II was forced to relocate to the harsh landscape of Heart Mountain, where she became one of the 120,000 Japanese Americans who were interned there during World War II, and who, when she returned to the area after the war, was instrumental in spreading the message of peace, anti-racism, and allyship to her community. And Jose Antonio Vargas Elementary, after our own student who previously attended Crittenden Middle School, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, filmmaker, and immigration rights activist, and who continues to inspire our students and families with his story of perseverance and bravery. And
therefore, be it resolved that the Mountain View Westman School District Board of Trustees adopts a resolution number 01-051426 to encourage the celebration of National Asian American Pacific Islander Month in the schools of the district with culturally responsive activities, and to value the roles and contributions of Asian American Pacific Islander people to the local and national economies, culture, and identity. Thank you. Now we will move on to the next item, which is board policies and board bylaws at first reading. Vice President Henry for the policy committee.
Thank you. Pull up my notes. All right, thank you. So tonight we have a number of policies that came before the policy committee in April at our April 22nd meeting. It's the rest, it's additional policies from CSBA's February update, plus some additional updates, things that had been continued conversation before that. We'll have the first reading tonight, and then the ones that are ready to move forward would come back at the May 28th meeting. All right, so we have a couple of batches of them. I'll go over the individual numbers when we get to them, but this is the list of the batch of ones related to personnel. And then next slide. Two that relate to students and instruction. And then we have some updated board bylaws. So the first one that relates to personnel, the board policy covers, it's kind of a 3-in-1, covers certificated personnel, classified personnel, and administrators, supervisors. And then there are 3 separate exhibits that go along with this policy. They've all been updated to reflect new law SB 848. So there are 3 separate exhibits that will be added to the 4000s in the policies. One, exhibit 4119. Exhibit 1 of 4119.21, professional standards, and this applies to certificated employees. It aligns with the most recent version of the National Educational Association's Code of Ethics for Education. And then Exhibit 1 of 4219.21, also professional standards. This one applies to classified employees, and it includes the Code of Ethics of the California School Employees Association, CSEA. And then Exhibit 1, 4319.21, professional standards. This one applies to supervisory and administrative employees, and it has the California Professional Standards for Educational Leaders. Then we have 4119.24, 4219.24, and 4319.24. These are 3 separate policies, as you'd see in the agenda, all dealing with maintaining appropriate adult-student interactions. 3 policies, 1 for each category of employee. We have a lot of policies where there's a 4100, 4200, 4300 of almost identical policies. These policies are now mandated related to SB 848. There are many of the things were already in place, but having it as an actual policy is mandated now. And for purpose, one of the changes is that for purposes of this policy, employees includes interns, volunteers, contractors, and others with an employment relationship with the district. It updated to reflect SB 848, prohibits inappropriate conduct between district employees and students, and it expands the list of inappropriate conduct and specifies some additional things. Then we put forward 421911 and 431911 on sexual harassment. We have an existing and already updated BP 4119.11, but there are cross references in some of the other policies in the 4000s to these other 2 policies. Most of the cross references will have all 3 policies lumped together, and we didn't have the 4200 or the 4300 for this one. So this is adding these 2, 421911 for classified employees and 431911 for administrative and supervisory employees. Again, just to catch up with the cross references in other policies. Similarly, with 4236 and 4336 non-school employment, we currently have an updated version of BP 4136 non-school employment for certificated employees. And this would be adding BP 4236 for classified employees and BP 4336 for administrative and supervisory employees. Then next up, we have two policies related to students and instruction. First up, 5131.8, mobile communications devices. Ed Code 48901.7, as updated by AB 3216 in 2024, requires the board to adopt a policy by July 1st, 2026, coming up this summer, that limits or prohibits student use of smartphones. This proposed policy was developed after significant stakeholder participation that was coordinated by the staff and brought to the policy committee in April. But that stakeholder participation started back in the fall with input from administrators, the district advisory committee, parents, and staff. Based on that stakeholder participation and that input, the staff proposed, and we are recommending to the board as a policy committee, the policy be that personal mobile communications must be turned off and put away during school hours, including smartwatches being in airplane mode. The policy, as required by the code, by Ed Code, includes some limited exceptions in the case of emergency, when a teacher or administrator grants permission, when there's a physician that determines that the use or possession is necessary for the student's health or well-being, or when it's required by the student's IEP. And additionally, provision in here is that mobile communication devices shall not be used in a manner that infringes on the privacy rights of another person. Next up, we have BP 6142.7, physical education and activity. MVWSD's policy was last updated in 2010, which is why you may see some more significant language updates in the proposed revision. It's catching it up to the current CSBA recommendations. And then the current specific updates from recent changes in law are one, updating the policy to add a provision to grant an accommodation if a student is participating in religious fasting. And then it also is updated to reflect a requirement under statute that the district develop, adopt, and implement extreme weather protocols, which would then be reviewed annually. Then with the board bylaws, we have a few things. Bylaw 9320, meeting and notices, we didn't have before, and there are cross references to it. And it was actually in the latest CSBA packet to be updated. So we've proposed adopting it. So some of the things that were new in the latest CSBA recommendations were, so this policy is something that's mandated to fix the time and location for our regular board meetings. And then things that were updated by CSBA to reflect changes in law. Includes an update to the emergency meetings section to include local emergencies. And then if we had had this policy before, the sample policy changes move some language from 9320 to a new 9320.1, which deals specifically with remote meetings and attendance. So we have proposed that the board also adopt bylaw 9320.1 on remote meetings and attendance. So this would pull together all the content related to various types of remote meetings and remote attendance by board meetings, kind of a one-stop shop for everything related to remote meetings. And it reflects some updates from SB 707 regarding allowing remote meetings as an accommodation and due to just cause, and remote meetings during a proclaimed state of emergency. We're going to get that local emergency as part of the definition of emergency. Then two more, bylaw 9322, agenda meeting materials. The changes here were to add a cross-reference to Board Bylaw 9321, closed session regarding the closed session agenda. And the public comment section just clarifies that the public has the opportunity to comment on any agenda item, including items in closed session or on the consent agenda. No changes to our practice. It adds a section, special meeting agenda dissemination to members of the public, to clarify the requirements for the dissemination of a special meeting. A special meeting agenda is, again, no change to our practice, but it adds that section to document it and adds a new heading, disability-related accommodations or modifications. And again, nothing in this was intended to change any of our practices, but just to bring things up to date. And then bylaw 9323, meeting conduct. It just adds a specific material related to the removal of an item from the consent agenda. Adds a little bit of language related to the public comment period when a remote board member is attending based on just cause. And then adds a new section heading disruptions and some updates reflecting a recent court decision regarding clearing the room when a meeting is willfully disrupted and cannot be restored by removing disruptive individuals. One thing that came out of that court case was it does not allow relocating the meeting to a different room in lieu of clearing the meeting room. So that is one of the recent updates. So I know that's a number of policies. So see if anybody has questions.
Clarifying questions from the board? Trustee Conley?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all of your work on this. I had a question, and it may lead more into discussion. It is around the says Board Bylaw 9323 meeting conduct. This section, let's see if I can find it. I was just going through maybe I'm in the wrong one. In the board bylaw, I bet you'll be able to find it, Vice President Henry, where it's talking about public comment and time periods. Something new that I haven't seen before is that if somebody wants to give their time to another speaker, they may do so, which we have had in the past. But it sets no limit on how many people could give that speaker their time, other than the 20-minute time limit that exists overall. And I'm not sure if we want a process where there's a 20-minute presentation by a public commenter, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And we talked about that. And let me just make sure that what ended up in the draft.
I'm looking at the redlined versions is where I saw it.
And that was 93.
Oh, I had the wrong number.
Meeting conduct one.
I thought it was.
Oh, I see.
Yes, it's 9323 meeting conduct. It's it's number 4. There's so many subsections. I don't quite understand which subsection it is, frankly. It's on page 3. Item 4. An individual speaker may give some or all of the speaker's time to another speaker, provided that no individual speaker is permitted to speak more than the maximum time permitted per individual speaker.
So that was the part that we discussed. It's not intended to be, basically you can come up together, but you still all get 3 minutes. It's not adding the 3 minutes. It's for the individual speaker, not the total comment time.
Then how do they give some or all of their time?
Superintendent Bear. Let me just look at the way it's phrased. I think the intention, what I understood to be the intention of that, the writing in what we discussed was, let's say there are 20 speakers and we would otherwise have to cut down the 3 minutes to 1 minute. That if instead people group up, that then one person could speak on multiple people's behalf and still get the 3 minutes.
Okay.
But not that they would get 9
The
minutes
full
out
20
of.
minutes or,
Yeah.
okay.
But
All right.
It would reduce the number that we divide by.
It is just not terribly clear in the way it's written. And when I look at board bylaws, I want them to be very clear, not just for the board, but for the public and how this process will work. So I don't know if it's possible to refine that a little bit more.
Save that for discussion.
I mean, I'm asking, is it possible to refine that?
This is first reading, right? So we can refine these things. So this is the purpose of first reading before second reading. Sorry to jump in, Vice President Henry. But yes, as noted, we discussed this quite a bit during the meeting.
Anything else?
I was there, so I won't ask questions. But any no further questions? I'll now turn to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item, you can turn in a speaker card in person or use the raise hand function online. Let's see how many speakers we have before allocating time. See one member of the public online wishing to speak. We'll give 3 minutes. Nyung, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you for this. I just have one request. For these policies, if you make any changes to it, is it possible to see it in red or what was crossed out, what was added? So we know what changes are made. I've seen this done in other district and I find it very helpful. And I was hoping, this could be implemented here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, we do attach the full content that we're discussing at this meeting, and then there's a redlined version, usually adjacent to it in the meeting materials. Yeah, but that should help clarify. Okay, now back to the board for discussion. Trustee Helmy?
Can we just clarify on that item so it's more clear for the public?
I think so. If we can find some language that tightens that up a little bit, I think. Yeah, I think maybe an example thing there would work well. But yeah, I think we went around a bunch on what the language was because some of it came from CSBA and we were trying to map it into there. And so we're trying to hew as closely as we can while still making sure we are clear about the intent. But this is why we bring these as a first reading. We just make a recommendation on this and the full board gets to decide what ultimately comes through. And that's why we do it in 2 readings so that we can adjust them before we approve them. Trustee Cullen.
I was also, the just cause for remote attendance by board members is new. Can you speak more to has there been a change in law or legislation or case law? Like, where did that come from?
Vice President Henry, but I believe there's been adjustment in law to what remote meeting attendance looks like because I think it was relaxed significantly during COVID times, and then they've kind of tweaked it over time to adjust there. But that's my recollection from when we discussed this. But I think
Yeah,
we may have
just cause, there's the two, the different ways that you can participate remotely. There's the one where in advance your address where you're going to be goes on, and then there's the one where you're sick, you have a sick child, and and so let me just make sure I'm not misspeaking about what changed.
I mean, it's a whole new thing that's never existed.
It is, no, that's
the just cause piece.
That's the term for like when you have a sick kid.
Yeah, no, I know, but
that's not new.
That's not new? I believe that's
it was like there was a limit on the number of times you can do the just cause. But the changes were more about The changes were the like defining what the state of emergency and to include a local emergency, and how we communicate about on the emergency piece. And then
Well, I'm
bringing everything from what was 9320 as it existed before into 9321 remote meetings and attendance so that it was all in one place, because that had been part of a bylaw that we didn't have. That
So
it's not
maybe
new
that's
to us. I mean, it's new, it's not new in existence. It's just somehow we didn't have this as a board policy, even though we were following it.
So, well, we were following the legal guidance we were given, and we were never given legal guidance around just cause, frankly. That's not been something that was available to the board in the past. And I'm speaking as somebody who's been through many interesting situations.
This speaks to why I think the value of having the committee
Thank
going through
goodness.
these and keep these updated for
Yep.
us.
And so I would like to know more about how documentation is provided for that. But that could be an offline question later.
Any further discussion?
I think
I'll pause while
with
folks
those, you have the changes that
review the changes that
will
were.
come back.
I think one is there's a language. I think the other is more administrative for how we track when just causes is utilized. But I think that's not in the policy. It's more of how we just execute that. Fantastic. Okay. No further discussion. All right. It's a discussion item only. So now we will move on to item 10, board updates. Any updates from members of the board since the last meeting? Trustee Conley.
I want to thank everyone who was able to attend the Hoffman Awards last night. It's wonderful to come together as a community in Santa Clara County with school board trustees, superintendents, staff members from across the county, and celebrate truly exceptional programs. And it was also just amazing that one of those truly exceptional programs was ours. So yeah, I want to congratulate again all of the staff and Director Nguyen on the work that's being done at Castro Elementary School. And I am driving up tonight to Sacramento for the California School Boards Association Board of Directors meeting and delegate assembly. And we have finalized the delegate assembly runoff election has been finalized. Trustee Elizabeth Halliday is the trustee who is elected through that runoff to be our newest delegate.
Thank you. Safe travels up to Sacramento. For me, just a brief update. This is why active transportation is particularly on my mind this week. I participated in the Bub bike bus this week on Monday. We went from Gemello Park all the way to Bub. It's a fantastic event. I would love to see it at more schools, but anyway, I saw some of the active transportation improvements that the city's made for a lot of those intersections, which are now much safer for young kids going to elementary school. It's a nice thing to see. I've heard talk about the parents that were, biking with their kids the first couple times, and now I see them standing at their door with coffee while the kids go off with the bike bus, and it's a great freedom that gets provided to those families. So it's a wonderful thing. I thank the community members who put that together. Any other updates? Seeing none. Items for future agendas. Conley.
I hope that we can at some point agendize the CLSBA conference. The California Latino School Boards Association conference is in San Jose this year. It's in August. So we kind of have to, if we want to send our board president or our superintendent or staff members, we need to get that on our radar quickly. It's the cheapest it's going to be because it's local, which is great. But this is an organization that really focuses on the needs and the opportunities for our Spanish-speaking community And we have a large percentage of Latino and Hispanic students in our school district. So I think it's very important that we participate in the professional development that happens there and bring back resources for our district.
Thank you. It's on our radar. And then just as FYI, we're entering the end of the school year season, so we will be bringing superintendent evaluation in a future couple meetings. So everyone be prepared and start thinking through. Next, any other items for future agendas? Trustee Reed?
After the housing board update and the discussion about potential income we'll be earning from that, it would be nice for us to have a discussion on how to use that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. All right. Any more?
We need to schedule our board retreat in August.
Okay. Yeah, we'll track that. All right. With that, now next item is future board meeting dates. Next regular meeting is May 28th, 2026, and then June 11th, 2026 after that. Any further business? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:47 p.m. Our next regular meeting is May 28th, 2026.